And a lot of people gets triggered by it because I always say business comes first, product comes second, then engineering comes. Right? No one cares about engineering. If business is there, then only everything else exists. If you cannot drive business, if you cannot drive impact, if you cannot drive outcome, nothing else matters. No matter how beautiful the code is, no matter how extensible the code is, if your number of lines of code is more than the number of customers, there is something seriously wrong.
Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Hey Arpit, welcome to my channel to you as well. Thanks for accepting the invite. So everyone, Arpit doesn't need any introduction. You all know him. He is famous in social medias as AsliEngineer. He does code-based courses on system design. He has YouTube channel on system design as well. I watched that channel and I learned a lot of system design from him. So yeah, today I have him with me. So let's start. Arpit, although you don't need a lot of introduction, but a little bit of introduction of yourself to my audience.
More than happy to give. By the first of all, thank you so much for inviting me, Rivu sir. Means a ton. To start with a quick intro. So name is Arpit. Huge, big fan of computer science. I love the math behind it, the science behind it, the logic behind it. More than technology, like more than the framework part of it, I find the internals very interesting. I like to go deeper into anything and everything that I read about. Plus, more importantly, I like to share, which is why a lot of people started resonating with me, and which is why AsliEngineering. I got it printed about a year back, and since then I've been wearing it for most of my YouTube videos, unless I'm too lazy to do it. But most of my passion lies in databases, but I still convert like databases, approximate data structures, and almost anything and everything that is like internal working of things. So I don't shy away from it. So that's okay.
That's good. It's a little bit same with me as well. I like during my engineering time, I used to love automata theory. It was like one of my teacher told me that if you continue with this with automata theory, you will go mad. So yeah, I loved automata theory, right? And I started my career. I did a lot of things here and there, and I always was interested in what goes behind the scene, right? And I think that's what put me where I am today. Same as you. So yeah.
Curiosity takes us places. That's the best part. Nice.
So
like automata theory, what happened with me was when I was first learning automata theory during the college course, when teacher taught us about the finite state machine, I suddenly started thinking of a lot of use cases of it. I did not know something like that this existed in industry already. I'm talking 2010. And then I started thinking of what?
I also learned automata theory 2010 or 11. Similar thing.
Similar. So at that time, I had no idea about industry, what happens, how people leverage it. So then I started creating use cases around it. So one of my first examples that I thought of finite set machine was to create a Morse code decoder. For like for example, 110 or other dot dash, right? It would mean something. So I said like because Huffman code and Morse code are very similar, I can model Huffman code decoder as finite state machine, and I can also model Morse code decoder as finite state machine. So that was something that I thought of, and I just asked my teacher, and my teacher said, how did you think about it? right? It's actually very obvious because
Yeah.
that's how we interpret Huffman code. Because actually, just like in another subject parallelly, we were supposed to create a Huffman encoder and decoder. So I'm like, that's exactly what we do. We create tree. So for me, when I saw finite state machine, for me it was like tree, because that's what we do. Although you can have loops and all, but a very trivial finite state machine is a tree. You go this, assuming all the leaf are your basically terminal states, right? So that becomes a tree, and that's how I linked it. And my teacher was shocked. And then for the entire lecture, so not entire, but for the last 15 minutes, we were just like, I just got everyone engrossed. How can we actually do that, right? So how can we model a Morse code decoder or a Huffman decoder with a finite state machine? It was quite fun.
Yeah, it
Good
was
memories.
like I remember in automata theory classes, right? Most of my class, so I studied in a very small engineering school, right? And it was not even full engineering, right? You probably know that I am not a degree holder. I hold a polytechnic diploma in computer science. So yeah, it was very small, and my batch consisted about 15 students in computer science. So yeah, no one else were uh, understanding automata theory, and what we did was that I would ask, like I would learn from the teacher, and then I would explain to them after the class in a simpler manner, right? Because during the class I would always ask these kind of questions, and teacher would go on. Teacher enjoyed that a lot. Teacher would go on in depth to explain it to me, and that went over my batchmates' head, right? Because they were not that much interested in automata theory. So yeah, that was fun. That was really fun. Now coming to career, right? How did you got so much interested into internals?
Yeah. So for me, like going into internals, something that comes very naturally. So to be honest, it's about like I I I get kick when I know how things work, right? So think of me like someone who just loves to learn a lot of stuff. I might not do anything practically with it, but I just like to know a lot of stuff, and then I like to spark curiosity. So what happens is every day in the apartment where I live, we have like 10 to 15 kids. Almost every day in the evening, they come to my home and I teach them interesting, so I basically tell them fun facts, science, maths, programming, this and that. Right? So it comes very naturally to me to know stuff so that I can talk about it. Right? And I get a lot of questions. Like most of them are pretty basic, but I get a lot of questions. Hey, how did this work? Why did MP3 encode it in this format? So throughout my BTech, what happened, like BTech was the best thing to happen to me, because I suddenly was exposed to plethora of systems.
Yeah.
Right. MP3 encoders, decoders, JPEG encoders, decoders, deep algorithms, maths behind it. Like one of my graphics project was to build a game like with pocket tanks. Why I built it? Because that was a like first year we had mechanics. Yeah, basically engineering mechanics. Right. In that we learned projectile motion. Pocket tanks was projectile motion. We had graphics course. So first year mechanics, second year graphics, milke, second year graphics project became pocket tanks. Because it was very easy to do. It was just bunch of math, nothing more. Right. So, and that's how I became really curious, because I was getting a chance to explore a vast set of systems. And then third year came in, it was database course. I hated databases. I'm like, why table, rows, columns? Because I just want to put data and get data. I actually found it quite boring at that time. So what I did
Kind of opposite for
is,
me, but yeah.
I found it really boring. Right? Now I love it, but at that time I found it really boring. So, but we had to do one project. I don't want to create 15 tables and just put data and get data from it. So what I did, 2011, 2010, because third year, first semester, 2010. Correct, 2010. So at that time, I created a speech recognition project in which I created a speech controlled quizzing software. In which, and like what happened was, my data, my backend was literally just one table with all the pre-filled questions and correct answer, no state management, nothing. I put all my energy, all my heart and soul for a week to figure out how speech recognition would work in Windows software. And we all used to code in Windows at that time. Right? So it got it working. When someone says A, it used to detect and do it. I didn't do audio processing. I just used some libraries here and there. But when I went for the demo, I had my headphones on, and like me and two of my friends. So we three people did project together, and we went for the demo. And the teacher asked, "Why are you wearing headphones?" Like, "Ma'am, take this." And ma'am was shell shocked. Right? And I said, "Ma'am, say something. Like, we say whatever you want to say. Just speak in English." So she said A, and it actually selected A. I said, "Say next." It went to the next screen. So my entire project that was supposed to be all about databases became all about speech recognition, and she loved it. Right? And this is where I actually found shortcuts in most cases just because of curiosity. This I found boring, so I did something else, and that's how my entire BTech and MTech went by. I was just really curious because I was getting an exposure to a vast range of domain, and that like I just love doing it.
Yeah. So that's the thing about you and me, right? Whenever I talk to you, I feel so much correct. Although I didn't do as much fun stuff as you, my projects were boring. Most of the projects were boring. But yeah, for me, I actually love database. When databases were taught, I actually loved writing queries and all. And I loved when I got introduced to the constructs, right? So yeah, that was quite fun because before that I actually built up software for student. Basically, my college didn't have any software, right? Before that, I built up a software for student management and all those things. And I used file system with C to do that. That was very hard. That was really hard. And then I got introduced to database. I thought, okay, no, this is quite easy. All these hard stuff that I did, it became really easy.
Yes,
right? So that's why I love database. And yeah, so far, like till now, if I'm given between a ORM and somewhere I can write down raw query, I would still choose
raw queries.
I don't like queries. I feel like I am giving away control. So yeah.
Same here. I recently wrote a lot of code. No RMs. Raw SQL queries, prepared statements works best. I need the entire control. I'll write the most optimized SQL query.
Yeah. I am not much confident nowadays about writing most optimized SQL query, but yeah, I would still do it myself. But
nice.
So when did you started to learn system design?
Actually, to be honest, I don't think of system design as something new.
Yeah, it's not.
Because it's actually what we do on a day-to-day basis. Right? So I never realized that I was learning system design. For me, it was more of curiosity. And I'm not even kidding that now I know system design, that's why I'm saying this. But that's really true. Like and which is why for a lot of my random posts on LinkedIn, I use the hashtag system design because I think that's part of system design. And a lot of people correct me and they say, okay, this is not system design, this is system design. Like, I don't see a difference. I say I'm building a system. This is something which you would require to build a system. So in one of my posts about multi-threading, where I spoke about connection pool, where I spoke about thread pool, and I wrote system design. And I legit got a message from someone, Arpit, this is not system design. I think you added a wrong hashtag. First of all, thank you for noticing that I use hashtag, like at least one more hashtag. But the key thing was I did not see a difference. For me, it was like I'm designing a system, so I should think about like the way I approached it is whatever I'm talking about or whatever I'm trying to build, I should be building it end to end. That's all my whole focus was. And when I say end to end, it's not about just drawing the boxes, but about knowing those intricate details of how I would implement. And that's what my entire goal is. That I need to, I need to design it such that I'm the one who is implementing. Right? So I kept diving deeper and deeper into research papers, implementation. I literally code out everything, the core of every system I code it out so that I have that deeper understanding. And I never realized that I was doing system design. Well, I know that I definitely was not doing competitive programming, but for me, it's either competitive programming or system design because I don't know a third thing even exists because everything else is system design because you are doing like whatever you are doing, you are actually is going to be part of a system, right? Even multi-threadedness that you do is going to be part of a system. You are improving the performance, the overall performance of the system, right? So I think of it that way, and but I for me it's not drawing a line. So which is where like you can think about it that right away I started doing it, right? But if as per the current definition where you would say when are you architecting a system, if I may want to use that term, then it actually happened right after my master's. When I joined Practo, I architected a small system. I was architecting a database as a service. It was an experimental project, and Practo leadership trusted me with it. It was far-fetched, where we were trying to build our own database, and they thought I could do it. But unfortunately, then I quit and joined Amazon, and then Unacademy and whatnot. But I kept, just because of curiosity, I kept knowing stuff, and I kept getting interesting projects which were kind of system design or system architecture, and that's how I became good at it. But then I got practical exposure right away from Practo because at Practo I joined DevOps and platform engineering. So as a fresher, like who just completed masters, had no idea how to start a web server, and I was dealing with all DevOps C stuff, right? So managing AWS consoles and this and that and downtimes, and we managed Elasticsearch cluster and in-house Elasticsearch cluster. So got a lot of learnings through that. But again, it was out of curiosity and extreme ownership that I was getting involved on those projects, helping me become better.
That's interesting. My story is a little bit different. I am not as good at those as you, but yeah, I initially like in mobile system design or architecture is a very different topic, right? It still is how you drive performance, how you structure your components. But yeah, it's different than the entire system. So yeah, I started to care about how we structure classes, right? And I read a lot, and then I came across architecture patterns, but I soon realized that those only deal with presentation layer and UI layer, right? Which I still see a lot of Android developers don't understand. They still think architecture patterns are architectures, which is not the case. Yeah, I realized that, and then I kept reading. I read about clean architecture. I read the book, and that's how I got curious about it, and I'm still curious. I'm still learning, right?
That's a common trait.
No, that's true. I am not nearly as good with system design as you, and I work with some great people who are really good at those stuff. So as I work with them, I am learning every day. I'm learning something new. So that is really good. So yeah, now let's say some new engineer now, some freshers comes in, right? What would you and that question I get a lot. I'm sure you also get a lot. That what should they learn? What's your answer?
What do you mean learn? Let's make it a little specific. What do you mean when you say learn? Like what in which
they're
aspect?
asking, and they're coming and asking, okay, Bhaiya, I am just graduating or I am in final year. What do you recommend me to learn? The question generally starts off there only. So, yeah.
Okay. So in most cases, it's about which stack should I learn? If that's the question, so let's start with stack. Pick any stack. It does not matter. Programming language is just a tool. Like literally could be C, C++, Java, Golang, Python, Node.js, Bun, anything, right? There is no reason for, like, that should not be your criteria to not start.
Yeah.
See, what happens is, one thing that I realized is, a lot of people waste a lot of time thinking, is this the right thing? Thinking, am I picking the right step? Thinking, am I on the right path? Right? To be honest, for freshers, it's 0 to 1 journey.
Yeah.
No one gives a damn about what you are learning. You're anyway never be going to be using it for the rest of your life. Right? You have ample of time, you have ample of energy. Right? So when you're going 0 to 1, just pick one, just start. Right? So instead of wasting 1 week, I would be wrapping up a language in a week. Right? Right? I would put more focus on doing rather than thinking, am I doing the right thing? Because you're fresher, you have huge amount of time. Right? Now we are 30 plus, and we know how constrained our time is. We know how difficult it was for us to take out time even for this conversation.
Yeah.
Because we like, for the folks, we were recording it around 3, right?
Yeah.
Because I knew I had to put my daughter to sleep from 2 to 2:30 so that I can do this conversation. FYI, we have to manage a lot of stuff, right? But with freshers, it's really important to, just get started. If it's about tech stack, pick one, right? Don't like Java, pick Golang. Don't like Golang, pick C++. Don't like C++, pick Rust. Just pick one and start. Stick with it. Stick with it, right? And second thing that a fresher should definitely learn is little abstract, but art of critical reasoning. That's extremely important, right? A lot of people like to know what, what is this? What is this? What is that? Right? Some of them like to know how it is, like how to use it. Right? So for example, what is Bloom filter? A lot of people would like to know, which is why most of the videos are filled with it. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of people would know how it can be used, which is its practical application. Right? But you need to ask those critical questions. Why?
Why? Yeah.
Right? And how it works internally. Right? Going into that depth, because when you start asking those critical questions, that's where the magic happens. For example, last Sunday I recorded a Twitter space, or last to last Sunday I did a Twitter space where we were talking about SQL versus NoSQL. And I asked a simple question that if tomorrow MongoDB starts supporting SQL interface, will you call MongoDB SQL DB or a NoSQL DB? Because if you look at the name SQL DB, you think that I can only talk SQL with a SQL DB. But that's not true.
Yeah.
You can have a relational database, or you may want to choose to call it relational DB. Not sure, because GraphDB are NoSQL DB, but they have relations. Right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, do you want to call it transactional? You say MySQL has transactions, but so does DynamoDB has transactions. So should you call it transactional DB? So these are critical questions where any generalized statement that you hear as a fresher, ask yourself, are there any exceptions? This critical reasoning, this critical thinking, this critical questioning is so important, because then you stop taking things on its face value. Because just because someone said, no, this is this, right? You cannot just accept it, right?
Yeah.
Think if you can see an exception. See if you can find a gap in their understanding, not because someone has said it's going to be 100% true. Right? This is one of, like, if I were to change something, this would be it. I started doing this a little late in my career, but at least I was curious to overcompensate for it. But if today, and I really want to go back to college and do that 4-year engineering course once again, but if I start my career again, this is what I would be doing, asking critical questions every time.
Yeah, I completely agree. So that is a session I also give. And another thing, like I like to give a session that experiment with multiple techs, right? Experiment with multiple platforms, multiple techs. And if you like something, stick with it. But keep learning other things as well, right? So what I believe gives me an edge as a mobile engineer is that early in my career, I used to do web, I used to do backend, and that gave me a little bit understanding of how actually entire thing works, right? So that's what gave me an edge on thinking when solving a problem, right? I used to most mobile engineers, when you ask them to create a solution for anything, right? They would say, yeah, let's get all the data in one API.
API.
I used to think, okay, if I get one in one API, okay, that it has to do this many queries to this many tables. So yeah, it's better to break it up to API calls that would actually save users time. So that kind of thinking I got because I used to do a little bit of backend, a little bit of web, everything, right? So yeah, I think people should learn more. Even still to this day, I try to learn new technologies, new languages, new to me, not necessarily new to the entire world. But yeah, for example, I'm learning Go and Rust.
Nice.
So Rust actually I tried to learn multiple times. I was not able to. I still took a course. Hopefully, I will learn now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, but you brought up a very interesting point. It's very important to learn a lot of stuff, and especially because at your early stage of your career, you have ample of time. Until you're 28, you have huge amount of time, huge amount of energy. Like now, I started seeing a decrease in my energy, and it's quite visible. Like how much I used to do 4 years back, now I'm not able to pull that off. Right?
Yes.
But which is where I like to talk about one thing. Like at Practo, one fun fact: I was part of DevOps platform team. I used to manage infrastructure. But you know what else I was part of? I was part of an internal JavaScript committee who used to standardize JS frameworks, like which framework to use, why it should be used, how to write good code. I have no relation to JavaScript. I am pure backend infra person at that time, right? But I was still part of a committee called JS Guild, and we used to regulate JavaScript usage in the organization. How did we do it? Right? How did I, with no front end background, was part of that, and I was driving it. So me, Siddharth, KP, and few other folks, we all were doing it, right? We all used to standardize things, right? Because I built front end for our staging infrastructure. I did not say no to it. That hey, I'm back and I won't do front end. And it's still live, and I still once every few months I do visit because it's publicly accessible. I do visit and see is it still on or not. Right, and that's what I build. Right, and out of nowhere, a backend person or an infra person regulating JavaScript usage in the organization. Who would have thought? Right? Like, I just love like doing everything on and off.
Yeah. And that actually gives you an understanding on how other systems work. And when you are building for real life, like you are building a system, right? An app or an website, whatever you call it. When you are building something for real use case, it's never on one platform. You have a front end. It might be mobile. It might be Android, iOS. It might be web. On web we have different options. It will still have a back end. It will still have database. So yeah, a little bit learning of all the systems gives you an edge. And yeah, that's why I recommend it, right?
No, it surely does. It surely does. It's really important. Plus, like when you have like one thing that I realized is right now people are quite radical. Like front end thinks back end is superior. Sorry, front end thinks front end is superior. Back end thinks back end is superior, and they think it's a tribe, right? That hey, like one cannot praise the other. Yeah, and plus a lot of people are actually not empathetic about the issues on the other side. For example, like you were just mentioning that hey, I want everything in one API call. That's how most front-end engineers would think. Yeah. But only a back-end engineer knows how painful it is to get it in one shot. How painful it is to serialize and deserialize this chunk of data. Right? Front-end person is not. But if you have an exposure on both sides, you would know that this is not just a limitation. Like this is not just that the back-end person does not want to do it. But because there is a technical limitation behind it, there is a performance overhead that would come if I just club everything in one API response. Right? If that was possible, we could have shipped the entire database to front end. That's not possible now. Right? So vice versa, if I just switch the role, front end would the back end would say, front end is really you just do CSS, you just do style and all. But if they know the best way for the front end to render the interface, like giving them as list of objects versus giving them as individual objects? Like how would you want to send the response to the front end, right? What would be the best way for them to paginate, right? For example, they say that like the classic case, how would front end paginate? Back end would say, I'll throw an exception when I end it. Is this the best way for front end to stop pagination?
No.
Should front end, like for example, just pass page ID equal to 1 and then 2 and then 3. A lot of backend people would say to front end that, hey, just send page equal to 1, page equal to 2, page equal to 3. But it is very much better if front end sends the next page token.
Yeah.
Sorry, the backend sends the next page token to front end. Because this way, you can control. If next page is empty, front end can stop iterating. It's so, and plus now you are decoupling your logic. Now your front end does not need to know that it needs to increment it by 1 every time and maintain that state. You're literally getting it in from the response. You can derive that it's an next page token. Problem solved. This is such simple thing, which is why like cross-pollination is really critical.
Yeah. And another thing, it's like how you should think about it is that like one thing, we are moving out of the topic, but one thing I have seen is that arguments in the work is actually good, right? So in one of my previous companies, there was this guy in backend, and we would regularly argue about things, right? He would say, okay, we would do this way. I would say, why you are going this way, go this way, and we'd argue. And I have a habit that when I'm excited, my voice raises automatically. I don't even notice. He also had the same habit. So yeah, we'd argue. And people will think we're shouting, and someone will come to calm us down. Oh, what's happening? We're not angry. We're not angry at each other. We're just excited and we are talking things.
Oh,
yeah, at the end of the day, we would go happily. We'd have chai and everything, right? And recently, I recommended to one of the companies as one of the best backend engineers I worked with, right? So yeah, I think we like, I'm not sure about him. I guess he did, but I learned a lot on those arguments, right?
Yeah.
Make sure that argument doesn't fall over to your personal life.
Again, it boils down to the art of critical thinking, right? If somebody is not actively listening, then they would never have an opinion.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah.
Right.
Agreed. So yeah, now I recently did a tweet that senior engineers don't think a lot about how things work internally. Although that was a run, I didn't want that tweet to explode. But Twitter has a habit of exploding things that are not helpful. So yeah. What do you think senior engineers should do? We talked about freshers. Now coming to senior engineers. What do you think they should do?
One thing that I've always like, I was having a one-on-one with basically someone who took my course. He asked a really interesting question. The person asked that I'm a senior engineer, and I don't think I'm contributing to any output. I don't have code to show. I don't have impact to show. But I have been doing this for more than a year, and I don't know where my time is going. I work 24/7, but I don't know where my time is going. Which is exactly what a senior engineer should do. That it's not the output that you are generating. It's the outcome that you are bringing, the impact that you are bringing, right? Everyone has the same 8.5, 9 hours of day job, right? Now, in that 9 hours, either you code yourself for 9 hours and get something out, or you help other engineers, you create a roadmap, create a detailed plan, give them, like, convert it into actionable items, assign a bunch of engineers and get it done. What would be the best use of your time, right? Because of the vast experience that the senior engineer holds, is the best use of his or her time is to have the overall productivity of the team to elevate, the overall outcome and impact of the organization to happen in the world, right? You in the organization in the world, transitive, right? And that is exactly what I think a senior engineer should do. Mentorship, day zero. Like, sorry, it's P0 for a senior engineer, that unblock as many engineers as you can. That's number one, without spoon feeding, obviously. Number two, figure out the details. Like it should not be that you just come up with an ambiguous promise statement and give it to engineers to figure out. No. I believe the role of a senior engineer is to take an ambiguous statement, break it down into executable pieces, and hand it over to the engineering team. And hand it over to SD1s and SD2s and SD3s to do it. Right. So, and third and the more important thing is finding those gaps in the overall high level scheme of things, that because that would push the envelope of the organization. That hey, this is a gap that no one saw and you saw it. Right. And that's what would push you as a senior engineer and bring out the best in everyone. And when I say senior, I really mean senior, not SD2. SD2 is not really senior. They're still pretty junior. As a senior, like 6, 7, 8, 10 years of experience. Okay, just to clarify. Yeah.
No, I got your point. Okay. Now, that was a very good answer on what a senior engineer should do. Now, what a experienced engineer should do to become senior engineer?
Experienced engineer should do to become a senior engineer. Okay, so 2 years experience to become senior engineer.
Yeah.
Extreme ownership. Extreme ownership. Yeah. I only 2 words answer for that.
Does a very good job at their day-to-day job, but now to become a senior engineer, what should they do?
The only thing, extreme ownership. That's all it boils down to, right? The person should not just focus on output that he or she is generating, but think about, because I always say this in my cohort, always. And a lot of people gets triggered by it, because I always say business comes first, product comes second, then engineering comes, right? No one cares about engineering. If business is there, then only everything else exists. If you cannot drive business, if you cannot drive impact, if you cannot drive outcome, nothing else matters. No matter how beautiful the code is, no matter how extensible the code is, if your number of lines of code is more than the number of customers, there is something seriously wrong. That's how I put it, right? So, which is where from an SD2 to senior engineer, extreme ownership is what you need to look out for. That, hey, what outcome you are driving for the organization, what impact you are driving for the organization. So one thing that I always go by is I never said that it's not my job. I said yes to everything. Right? Like, as I gave you an example, I was a fresh out of college, completed my master's, joined Practo. He asked, hey, do you want to be part of JS Kit? I'm like, yes. Arpit, will you take care of staging infra? I said, yes. Arpit, we are building a database. Do you want to join it? I said, yes. Even though it meant stretching, especially in early SD1, SD2, I had an impulse of time. Right? I did it. This way, I got very nice exposure, showed extreme ownership, drove output, drove impact. Then people trusted with bigger projects. So one thing is, an organization never gives the most impactful project to the best engineer out there. They give the project to the engineer who can get it delivered.
Yeah.
Right? You really don't have to be the smartest in the room. You just have to be someone who can get it done. No matter how dirty it is, no matter how ugly it is. And a lot of people say, Arpit, like especially a lot of SD2 say this, I'm doing this GDPR compliance. It's very boring. I'm not doing anything interesting. Right? To be honest, in 12 months span in a year, an engineer is not supposed to get more than 6 months of quality work. No organization has 6 months of quality work within a year. None. Zilch. Zero.
I like my kind of first, but yeah.
See, something that everybody would love doing, like all interesting projects, right? Would not happen. Not happen. Someone would find some grunt work, right? Right? Be it GDPR compliance, be it writing unit test, integration test, or whatnot, or just cleaning up the infrastructure, maybe refactoring a bunch of code, right? Something that is, when I say interesting, something which is not a new feature. Right? Be it backend, be it frontend.
Most of the things you said is actually interesting to me.
Right. So that's why you disagree, right? Right? So, which is where the thing is that if you can pull that off, that doing that grunt work, no matter how ugly, no matter how dirty it is, you are building the trust with the leadership.
Yeah.
Right? This person can get it. And people ask me, how do you get impactful projects? This is how I got impactful projects. To be honest, right now I'm doing GDPR compliance on some, and imagine an L6 at Google doing GDPR compliance. People don't resonate, but I have to do it because not everybody will get that. I'm leading I'm leading 2 projects. One of them is GDPR, but I have other super interesting projects. Right? So your bandwidth is always going to be shared. I never say no to an ugly work because what's important for business, I prioritize that. What's important for product, I prioritize. Then engineering work comes.
Yeah.
Right. So the more dirty, mundane, grunt work you do, and this does not mean that you should always do just that. But with that, you can, because it's mundane and grunt, you don't have to put in a lot of effort into doing it. Right? Time consuming, yes, but it does not eat up a lot of bandwidth, right? Which means it's easy for you to get it delivered. Use that as your advantage and ask for a better project.
Yeah.
And seniors would be very happy to give you because you have a proven track record of getting things delivered.
Yeah.
And that's what I would mention any SG2 to climb up the ladder. That it's not my job. You should never say that. Everything happening in the company, if you consider it as your job, showing extreme ownership, you can climb up the ladder very easily.
Completely agreed. On that, like I used to do it the other way, right? I used to think engineering first way of things, that okay, I will do good engineering, and I didn't used to care about business or product. It's changed now as I have grown, or as I have matured, I would say. I learned, okay, no matter how good your code is, if business is not there, what you said, right? It doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. So yeah, nowadays I put business and product first, like you, and then engineering. Another good thing you said, right? Building trust. So yeah, that is very good suggestion that you also gave. Okay. We talked about database, and I learned database, like database felt very easy for me because I did the exact same operations with file system. And you found another way to expand with the project you are interested in and learn database. I felt it's more especially for mobile engineers or front-end engineers, but I have seen backend engineers with this as well. Nowadays, there is a plethora of ORMs, and probably because of that, engineers are not as good with writing query. How to get better at writing queries?
Very solid question. I've seen people using ORMs and expecting ORMs to generate optimized query. They don't.
Yeah.
ORMs don't give you all the features. ORMs are bad in, like, after a certain scale, you should not use ORM.
Yeah.
It's just not as, like, you can write a much better SQL query, leveraging the actual functionality of the database, right? So few things that anyone should do to get writing queries. And by the way, this to the viewers, it just does not mean SQL queries. It means queries of the database that you are using, right?
Yeah.
Be it MongoDB, be it Cassandra, be it MySQL, be it Postgres, anything. First of all, a person should spend time understanding the properties of the database, the features that the database offers. Because if you know all the features that the database offers, you have created big dots in your head that, hey, something like this exists, something like this exists, something like this exists. Right? Then you start diving deep into the query aspects of it, like how are you ingesting data, how are you getting the data, the basics of it, so that you have a rough idea on how to insert, update, delete query. Then spend some time understanding the internals of it, not entire internals, but at least the storage layout of the database. That how is this database actually storing the data? Single node, multiple node, how it is partitioning the data internally. How many, like, how expensive is a pointed read on this database? How expensive is range query on this database, right? If a database supports indexes, how it stores the indexes. Now, why is that important? Because whatever query we write, the slowness of the query is directly proportional to the number of disk blocks your database is reading. Right? So if you know how your database is storing the data, how the data is laid out in the database on the disk, you can easily know that, hey, if I write query like this, if I create index like this, then this query will be faster. right? And if it's going to make a network call or not, if it's going to shuffle the data or not, you would be able to know that, right?
Yeah.
This is that. Now the next phase is about knowing the operators, the advanced operators that the database already offers. For example, with respect to SQL, there are a bunch of operators which are meant for specific types, and it does those operations much faster versus you writing a naive query. And then the final thing is using the explain statement. Be it SQL World, every database gives you a way to understand the query execution plan of it. So in MySQL and PostgreSQL, it's explain keyword. So explain select star from this table. It would tell you how database would exactly execute the query. Observe that, read that, understand the query plan, so that you know what your database is going to do, how is your database is going to execute it, and see if it is doing the best thing, if it is doing the full table scan, if it is using index only thing, or what exactly it is leveraging. This way, doing this over and over again, you would become better at writing queries, firing the database, beat any database in the world, literally any. Holds true for everything. MongoDB has it, Cassandra has it, everybody has it, right? So these are the few steps that I would recommend.
Very good sessions. Yeah. So yeah, I don't have any more questions.
Super, Rivu. It was fun.
It was
Short
fun. It
and
was
sweet.
fun. It was really fun talking to you. It's always fun talking to you. Cool. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for doing this. For the viewers, we are planning to do this recording for some time. It's getting further and further delayed because of me. I was having a lot of blockers to deal with. So yeah, sorry for the delays, Arpit. And yeah, thanks for doing this.
Fine. Thanks so much, Rivu, for having me. Quite fun. Maja hai baat karke.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great Sunday.